On June 12, 1980, the Los Angeles Police Department receives a disturbing call. While picking up trash along a freeway ramp, a highway worker finds the bodies of two young girls.
They were both semi-nude, hidden under some brush, but you could see them from the roadway.
They both appear to have been shot in the head.
There wasn't a lot of blood at the crime scene, which indicated they were obviously killed somewhere else and then brought here and dumped.
Police scour the area, but find no evidence that identifies the victims or their killer.
The two victims were young, were minors, so a check was made on possible runaways, missings, and through that process, it was found that they were both run away from the city of Huntington Beach.
They are identified as stepsisters, 16-year-old Cindy Chandler and 15-year-old Gina Marano. Police are surprised by the violence of the crime.
There's a lot of questions because of their age, the method of how they were killed, and the isolation area where they were dumped.
Gina was shot twice in the head. The coroner recovers two .25 caliber bullets from Cindy Chandler's skull and chest and reveals she has been sexually assaulted. Investigators question friends and family of the girls and learn they frequently ran away from home. With no other leads, police focus on the bullets and try to identify the gun.
We asked to the state all registered owners of the .25 caliber weapon we're looking for, and there was a horrendous list.
Two days later, on June 14th, LAPD gets another strange call. A woman claims that her boyfriend is bragging about killing the stepsisters and wants to confirm the details he told her.
But there was no exchange of information, so she, out of frustration, just hung up.
Carol Bundy seemed to be doomed from the start. Born in 1943, she was raised in Los Angeles.
She had a terrible childhood, and both parents were abusive alcoholics. Carol was regularly punished very, very badly, very severely beaten, and rejected by her mother.
When Carol was 14 years old, her mother died from a heart attack.
That same night, Carol's father took her into his bed and said that she had to take over now for her mother.
Her father crossed boundaries and sort of set her world into a whole different perspective.
After her father remarried a year later, Carol went to a series of foster homes, and her eyesight started to fail.
She became very, very promiscuous in high school as a way to get attention and to make herself feel loved by men, and basically that became her sense of identity. Carol Bundy seemed to be attracted to men who she thought would be sort of heroic for her, who would take her out of her life and rescue her and then provide a very strong model for her. She just enjoyed the feeling that these men could take charge.
In 1970, Carol, already divorced, married her second husband in Southern California. She worked as a nurse until her vision deteriorated and had to resign. After 9 years, Carol's husband became physically abusive. She left and moved into a shelter for battered women.
Carol put a gloss on it, the way she put a gloss on absolutely everything. She managed to idealize the most unpleasant situations. She would make excuses for everybody and could never really see reality. The vision problems almost became symbolic of her emotional blindness.
In January 1979, Carol Bundy moved into a Los Angeles apartment complex. She soon fell for the building's married manager, Jack Murray.
Jack was charismatic. He was a singer at the Little Nashville Country and Western Club, and he had scores of women who admired him greatly, and not necessarily from afar. He was married. He had 2 beautiful little children. And Carol was determined to get him away from his wife.
It wasn't long before Carol and Jack became lovers.
Jack took her to a doctor so that she could get her vision checked. She found out that she was not as blind as she thought she was, that her vision could be somewhat corrected, and that with glasses, the proper eyeglasses, she would be able to return to work.
Carol was eventually hired as a vocational nurse at a nearby hospital and continued her affair with Jack.
He used her sexually. He pretended that he would leave his wife for her. She stupidly gave him access to her safety deposit box, and he took quite a few $1,000s from her. And Carol, of course, was very angry and betrayed.
After a year of waiting, she pleaded with Jack to get divorced. When he refused, Carol tried to bribe his wife, offering her $1,500 to leave him.
Jack exploded, absolutely exploded, and ordered her off the property immediately when he found out that Carol had made this offer, paying her off with $1,500.
On December 28, 1979, Carol went to the bar where Jack performed. She instantly became infatuated with a man named Doug Clark.
She, in fact, was an easy prey, an easy target, because she was such a confused, needy individual with such low self-esteem that she was easy to manipulate.
He zeroed in and asked her to dance, and Carol was immediately smitten. He just kind of murmured in her ear. She thought he was intelligent, he was nicely dressed, and she thought perhaps this was finally the man of her dreams.
In June 1980, Los Angeles police investigating the gruesome murder of 2 teenage runaways receive a call from a woman claiming her boyfriend might be their killer. Carol Bundy thought she met the perfect man when she met Doug Clark.
Doug was grandiose. He was full of himself. He was a braggart. He would impress women by sprinkling French phrases throughout his conversation and talking about his travels. He was always so full of himself, but it worked on the women that he was preying upon. He knew to choose lonely women. He had an instinct for that.
Doug Clark grew up in a military family that moved all over the world.
He often had no real supervision, no sense of role models. He was kind of a slacker in school. He was clever and he was smart, but he tried really getting away with as little effort as possible. He was initiated into sexual things when he was fairly young, and especially into deviant things.
That there was an incident or a couple of incidents in his childhood where his mother caught him wearing her underwear or his sister's underwear.
In high school, Doug was popular with the girls.
Doug told me he had this taste for kinky sex, which is, you know, a little unusual in a high school boy, I think, who would take the trouble to set up a tape recorder underneath the bed and record his amorous liaisons and play them back for his friends later on.
Doug's fetishes soon escalated to role-playing, sex toys, and sadomasochism.
These things are now becoming very much part of his identity, and then they become addictions. Like any addiction, your body gets used to whatever it is you're using, and you want more, you want more. It's never enough to stay at the level you're at. You either want a greater challenge, or you want to explore more things like that, or you want to have it more often, but no addiction stays static. It always hungers for more.
In 1967, Clark was drafted into the military. He chose the Air Force and moved to Southern California. He was honorably discharged 4 years later and took a job as a steam engineer in Los Angeles.
He also had a high IQ for someone who hadn't been to college. So he was a strange mixture of soothing sort of charm and this purring voice and those frightening empty eyes, really, that everybody who met him commented upon. The eyes, you could just get lost in them.
When Doug saw Carol looking vulnerable, he knew he could charm her.
Carol was, to his mind, an easy target because she was sitting in a bar. She was 37, she was overweight, thick glasses, complaining, drinking. She was exactly what he was looking for because he figured he probably could easily move in. She'd pay for things for him, and he could stay with her for a while, and he didn't have to do a whole lot except pay some attention to her.
Within a few weeks, Doug and Carol rented an apartment together in Burbank.
But he had been looking, before he met Carol, for a woman who would share his fantasies about killing.
Doug slowly divulged to her his sadistic sexual fetishes.
In Carol, he found someone who was receptive, and because he combined his fantasies of violence with lovemaking, it began to sort of desensitize Carol to the idea of this extreme violence.
Carol soon shared Doug's twisted desires and didn't complain when he brought other women home, even an 11-year-old neighbor.
She's already experienced what it's like to be a young girl and have a man inappropriately touching her and caressing her and having sex with her. So to see someone like Doug Clark doing this with an 11-year-old would not startle her as it might somebody else, because she's already seen that men take charge, take over, and do what they want. And who is she to question that?
On April 24th, 1980, Doug convinced Carol to apply for 2 .25 caliber Raven automatic pistols. Wanting to please him, she willingly complied without question.
And so they went to a pawn shop on Van Nuys Boulevard, and they picked out a pair of little Raven automatics, and they called them the toys. One was for Carol, one was for Doug.
Doug prowls the streets of Los Angeles. Two months later, Doug told Carol he killed the 2 runaways.
He knows that's not the right thing to do, but he's doing it, he's getting away with it, and he likes it, feels good, he doesn't understand why it's wrong. He's also a narcissist. This is a guy who's completely enclosed in his own little world, and what he wants for himself is all that matters.
That's when Carol called the police to see if he was telling the truth.
So when he comes home with blood on his clothes, he already knows she's not going to react. She's going to do what she needs to do to keep him. So he knows that. And now he's introduced her into yet one more thing, the reality of murder.
Carol, at this point, is losing touch with reality because she's more and more limited to being around Doug. She's losing all her sense of self.
Soon, Carol joins Doug on his nightly escapades.
Doug told her that he only wanted a woman who loved him enough to kill for him. And Carol was trying to prove her love to Doug.
Then he tells her how he does it. He shows her where he's dumped a body, tells her how exciting it is, and then he takes her on an outing. Now that's going to be exciting. Why? Because it's intimacy. He's including me in this secret thing that he does. He trusts me.
On June 20th, Carol helps Doug kill a prostitute.
Carol got not only the adventure and the sense of importance, but she unfortunately did, I believe, get a sexual thrill out of it. They both did.
While the police are still investigating the murders of stepsisters Cindy Chandler and Gina Morano, Carol gets pulled deeper into Doug's sadistic web.
Carol had told Doug to make the murders progressively gruesome so that they'd be looking for a psycho and not somebody sane like him.
In June 1980, Los Angeles police investigating the murder of two teenage girls have no idea that sadistic killers Doug Clark and Carol Bundy are on a murderous rampage in their city. On June 23rd, police receive a 911 call reporting gunshots in Burbank. When they arrive, they discover an unidentified woman lying in the gutter. She is fully clothed with a single gunshot wound to the head. She is later identified by her fingerprints as Karen Jones, a prostitute from Arkansas. 3 hours later, an employee at a nearby restaurant discovers the nude, decapitated body of a woman lying near the dumpster.
I couldn't recall another case like this one. You know, decapitations are rare.
We had other units out there looking, searching the trash containers up and down the street, you know, with the belief that the head would be found somewhere close by. So all that was done, motels were checked, anybody missing, and that whole area was investigated. But all they had at that time was the body, nothing else.
Through fingerprints, she is identified as Exie Wilson. Like Karen Jones, found earlier that day, she is a prostitute from Arkansas.
So the connection is made that they're working mates, and they've both been out here 2 days. They came together. Well, all of a sudden, you got a connection between the cases.
But police have no reason to suspect the murders are connected to the stepsisters, Gina Morano and Cindy Chandler. For the next few days, they canvass the area. News of the bizarre double murder spreads fast through the city. Doug Clark loves the publicity.
As he began to see these things being written up in the newspaper and looking at what police officers were saying about the investigations, it tickled him to think that he knew what was going on. He was the one in control. And so to put a few little games out there and see what happened would just make him feel even better.
Carol also enjoys the excitement and wants to please Doug. On June 27th, a few miles from where Exie Wilson's body was found, a man stumbles upon a strange box.
And in the box, wrapped in a pink T-shirt that said Daddy's Girl, was the head of Exie Wilson.
When the head is found, and it's determined that it's frozen, once it's taken to the coroner's lab and thawed out, then swabs are taken from the neck-mouth area, and seminal fluid is found. Why would you keep it? Why would you keep it frozen? It was obvious to us that it could be necrophilia.
The coroner removes a .25 caliber bullet from Exie Wilson's head and compares it with the one that killed her friend, Karen Jones.
And it was the same gun killed both girls.
Police recall that Gina Morano and Cindy Chandler were also shot with a .25 caliber gun. Ballistics comparisons of the bullets from Cindy Chandler, Karen Jones, and Exie Wilson all show similar markings associated with a .25 caliber automatic Raven.
Now we know we got a serial murders going. Now we got a real sick individual who's out there. It just escalates the case. Now you've got something that you're being sent a message.
They question prostitutes on the Sunset Strip. Investigators know there is a woman out there who can identify the killer.
The biggest concern is to solve it. That's everybody's objective. When it increases because of this case and its bizarreness, you want to push a little harder to stop it or to solve it.
After the discovery of Exie's head, Doug turns on Carol.
Doug was getting increasingly angry with Carol and calling her a screw-up. She was afraid that he was going to kill her. She thought she might be the next victim.
A few days later, on June 30th, another body is discovered.
Her body is found decomposed in some trash area out in Foothill Boulevard in the valley.
She is identified as Marnette Comer, a 17-year-old runaway from Sacramento. The coroner estimates she has been dead for at least 3 weeks. 2 .25 caliber bullets are recovered from the body.
And we find that when she was last seen alive, she's wearing a pink shirt with a Daddy's Girl inscription.
Where we figured, wow, here's the message he's sending us, because now he's delivering the other portion of Exie, and in his sick mind, he's telling us, I've done others. It was frustrating because he's, it's a serious game we're playing here.
Get more Wicked Attraction online. In Los Angeles in 1980, police are on the trail of serial killers Doug Clark and Carol Bundy after 5 women have been found brutally killed. On August 3rd, Carol Bundy contacts her old boyfriend, Jack Murray.
She still has a thing for Jack, and she starts telling him and hinting at things that she and Doug are doing.
She tells him she is afraid Doug will kill her, and she needs his help to get away.
I don't think Jack Murray believed her at first. I think he thought that she was fantasizing.
Jack agrees to meet her in his van later that night. On August 9th, residents in Van Nuys contact police because of a foul odor coming from a van parked on the street. Police identify it as Jack Murray's van.
I was expecting to find the body of Jack Murray. In my wildest dreams, I hadn't expected to find Jack in the condition that I found him. He was slumped over 2 chairs like a couch and bent over. As I came closer, where his head should be, I noticed a bloody pillow and no head. There was a lot of blood. The body was swollen because of the heat being in the van as long as it had been. He had been also cut with a knife.
Police cannot locate Jack Murray's head, but they do find a .25 caliber shell casing inside the van. An autopsy concludes that Jack Murray had also been stabbed 9 times.
When Jack Murray was found decapitated, he immediately thought that it could be connected because of similarities.
Police questioned witnesses at the bar where he worked.
Money came to the forefront because Jack had conned her out of a large sum of money, and that you know, she was an ex-girlfriend and wasn't too happy with Jack.
Police go to her apartment and bring her in for questioning. Her roommate, Doug Clark, insists on accompanying her for support.
Douglas wanted to come down to the station with us so he could be helpful. He wanted to be present when Carol was being questioned.
Investigators questioned Carol about her whereabouts the day Jack Murray disappeared. She tells them she was with Doug all day.
Carol, I was very uncomfortable with. She was kind of a scary individual. She was nice one minute, cold the next minute, fluid one minute, disjointed the next. And I interviewed Clark, and we were in a very cool police station, and he is sweating profusely. He's nervous, agitated, but trying to be cooperative. Something was wrong. The man had some sort of guilty knowledge of exactly what I didn't know, but something was wrong. He tells me Carol was with him all night long and that she could not be involved.
A few days later, on August 11th, Doug Clark calls the Van Nuys police. He changes his statement about the night Jack Murray disappeared.
He was changing it to, yeah, she was there initially, but she left and didn't return again until 4 o'clock in the morning.
So he tries to immediately throw it on her. She's a manipulative, crazy woman, which is what psychopaths will do. They immediately toss it and start blaming everybody else.
I told him that I would be coming to see him, that we needed to talk about this in person rather than over the phone.
That same day, police also receive a call from Carol Bundy.
Carol felt that the net was closing on her and Doug. There was now too much evidence. She was too closely linked to Jack Murray. Too many people knew that she'd been talking to him that night. She was also still at that point very afraid of Doug and afraid that he would kill her.
Carol confesses to killing Jack Murray.
Carol lured Jack to the van to have sex, and she instead shot him in the head.
She beheaded him because she didn't want the police to get the bullets. So it wasn't about, I'm going to cut Jack's head off because I'm so angry at him. It was really a matter of cleaning up after herself and making sure the police didn't get the evidence. What she forgot to do was to get the bullet casings. That's why she thought she was going to get caught.
She tells them that she and Doug are the serial killers they have been looking for.
It's fun to kill people, and if I was allowed to run loose, I'd probably do it again. I have to say, I know it's going to sound sick, it's going to sound psycho, and I don't really think I'm that psycho, but it's kind of fun. Like riding a roller coaster. Not the killing, not the watching of somebody die, because we didn't kill them in any way that they'd suffer.
Investigators pick her up, and she gives them clothing that she claims belongs to some of the victims. She also hands over photographs of Doug and the 11-year-old girl. It is enough to arrest him on child molestation. Van Nuys police go to Doug's work.
He sees me and he waves, big smile on his face, and in his mind at that time he thinks we're looking at Carol. It felt very good to shake his hand and put the handcuffs on him. You know, I enjoyed that moment.
They hold him on the child molestation charges while they search for evidence to connect him to the murders. While police question Doug, Carol confesses to everything.
When they discovered Jack Murray's body, and I want to make this perfectly clear, because Doug didn't do Jack, I did Jack, that he wasn't in no way involved with Jack Murray's things. So hang him on his own stuff, don't hang him on mine.
Police ask her what she did with Jack Murray's head.
As Carol described it, she tells Doug, I brought Jack home with me. Doug gets mad. What the hell are you doing? You know I don't like the guy. Why? And she laughs, brings out the bag, black trash bag, shows it to Doug. He looks inside, and they laugh. They left and found an area where the trash was out for the night to be picked up next morning, so they disposed of it. But she brought it home as a trophy to show him that I'm just as good as you.
Investigators have Carol's confession, but with no solid evidence to support her statements, they fear Doug will soon be back out on the streets.
Typically, in any case, the work really starts after you make the arrest. You've done all the stuff before, all the forensics. Now you've got them. Now you've got to prove it.
Doug admits helping Carol dispose of Jack Murray's head, but he denies any involvement in the murders.
He immediately said, I did not do anything. She and Jack Murray did this together. They were in on it.
Even in custody, Doug's confidence does not waver. He knows the guns are in Carol's name, and that police have no physical evidence against him. In August 1980, Los Angeles investigators have suspected serial killers Doug Clark and Carol Bundy in custody after Carol confesses to the murders. But police struggle to find any evidence to back up her claims. Investigators search Carol and Doug's apartment. They find numerous pornographic magazines and adult toys, but no murder weapon.
The biggest issue, of course, was the guns. She referred to them as the toys. That was how she described the guns, the toys. And they were matching 25 auto Ravens. He had his, she had hers. We asked, where are the guns? Where's your gun? He said, well, Doug has them. We had checked his locker, his work area, nothing.
On August 13th, Carol Bundy is arraigned for the murder of Jack Murray and held without bail until her preliminary hearing. Investigators question Carol about Cindy Chandler and Gina Marano. She tells them Doug picked them up on the Sunset Strip.
Talking to Carol about murder is like we're exchanging a recipe in her mind. Very simple, very this and very that.
Okay, the two sisters were called the twins, Trippio sisters. Brunette girl, the 15-year-old. She didn't have a chance even to be aware of what was going on. It was bang, bang.
She says after he shot them, he kept their corpses in a storage garage for his pleasure until he later dumped their bodies.
The subject of necrophilia is pretty murky, and I don't think it's very well understood. But my instinctive feeling, knowing that Doug tended to shoot women who either upset him in some way or insulted him, is that a dead woman can't laugh at you or comment on your sexual performance.
Police inspect Doug's storage facility in Van Nuys.
The garage is empty, but the first noticeable item is the concrete floor. There is a clean area in the square. We had been told by Carol about Doug having a mattress in this location, and the remaining concrete floor was just full of a red substance. You can see the coloring of red, drag marks, a bloody shoe print impression on the floor. So it was just a horrendous crime scene.
They recall what Doug was wearing when he was arrested.
He was wearing a 3/4 high boot. The next morning, he went and took him from him at the jail.
Doug's boot matches the bloody shoe print found in the garage. Police also inspect Doug's car and find bullet holes and dried blood inside. Investigators have the physical evidence they need, but Carol Bundy continues to talk. She tells authorities what happened to Karen Jones and Exie Wilson.
He saw them, and something about what Karen said he didn't like. He got mad at her, right? So then he picks up Exie, drives her, kills her, and drives her, dumps Exie, keeps the head in a bag in the back seat, goes back to the strip looking for Karen because he got mad at her for whatever she said. He got a little ticked at her, and he said, I'm gonna get you. And he goes back, and he got her. And Doug brought Exie Wilson's head, to the house. Put makeup on Exie's head every morning for Doug. The way she's expressing it, and the look on her face of elation that they're having with this thing, I mean, weird.
Carol says she did not know of Marnette Comer's death, the 5th victim found, but she admits to helping Doug kill another prostitute and dumping her body. Then, on August 15th, one of Doug's co-workers discovers 2 .25 caliber Raven automatics behind some loose bricks in the factory where he worked.
Now we have the guns, and tests are conducted. This is the gun that caused the death of, here going down the line of the girls. And then Carol's gun is the gun fired in Jack Murray's car. So the guns are just tremendous because, we had, not only the right guns, it's their guns because they were purchased and registered.
In addition to the child molestation charges, Doug is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder for Gina Marano, Cindy Chandler, Karen Jones, Exie Wilson, and Marnette Comer. On August 26th, a worker inspecting some water towers in Antelope Valley stumbles upon something in the bushes.
And they had found skeletal remains, and in the head was a .25 caliber bullet that matched the guns.
Police are unable to identify the remains. But Doug is now charged with 6 counts of capital murder. On January 28, 1983, Doug is convicted of 6 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, plus 1 count each of attempted murder, mayhem, and mutilating human remains. He receives the death penalty. Two months later, a 7th unidentified victim is found. Carol confesses that it is the prostitute she helped Doug kill. Carol is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder.
She attempted to go in to say not guilty by reason of insanity. That was what she initially was going to plead, meaning I was so under his spell that I was utterly psychotic at the time of each of these crimes. Instead, she realized she had no footing. She was not going to get any psychiatrist or psychologist to back that up, and so she decided to just confess to it and take her medicine, essentially.
On May 2nd, 1983, Carol signs a plea agreement that spares her from the death penalty. She receives 52 years to life for the murder of the unidentified prostitute and Jack Murray.
I don't think for a minute that Carol would have killed anyone without Doug in her life. She may have had this, and undoubtedly did have an incredible residue of anger in her left over from her childhood. But I don't think for a minute that Carol would have killed anyone if it hadn't been for Douglas Clark.
In 2003, Carol Bundy dies of heart failure in prison. Doug Clark still sits on death row.